If you haven't seen the video, if you don't know who Jason Docton is, it means that you haven't seen the videos yet. You have to go watch it. You can watch it. Okay, I will not tell you now because otherwise you will not see what happens today. But you can put it in your saving things and watch it later, okay? Anyway, I'll present to you Jason. If you don't know who's Jason and you haven't watched the videos yet, which you should be doing, Jason is a bio-psychologist. So every Wednesday around this time, we get to talk with Jason about different topics. And today we will be talking about how to find your passion. This is a very, very important topic, and I feel like a lot of people will be taking a lot of insights from this talk of today. As always, Jason, thank you so much for being here.
Happy to be here.
My very first question is, what is your definition of passion? Let's start from there.
Yeah, I think that is a great place to start because we define passion very differently based on the culture that we're in. And I think for a lot of people, the idea of being passionate, having a passion, is that there is something that they love to do and always enjoy doing, find the most happiness in doing. And I don't think that that's technically correct. I think the way we define passion should be more focused on something that we like to do and are willing to sacrifice for. More attention needs to be paid to the sacrifice part. Usually we'll see people who are passionate about something tend to put a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of effort into what they're passionate about. And not all of that is necessarily something that they're super excited about or having a great time doing. Sometimes it simply is part of the process to sacrifice to get to some kind of result.
This is beautiful. This is very important to have in mind when we start this conversation. So the question that I would like to ask you is, how important is it to have a passion in our lives?
I don't know if it's that important. It is really the definition that starts to play the most important role there. If you define passion as a purpose in life, then yeah, then that's pretty important. If you define passion as something that you constantly enjoy doing, then I don't know. I don't think it's that valuable. If you define passion as something that you're willing to sacrifice for, I think that's pretty important. It really depends on the definition that you hold for it. But I think the current definition that we have of passion really misleads us into thinking that, until we find something that is always easy, always enjoyable, always exciting to us, we've somehow lost everything. We haven't found a real purpose yet. I don't think that's true at all.
So there is a difference between purpose and passion.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think people can be passionate about a lot of different things and not necessarily turn that into their life's work.
This is really nice. A lot of people might not have found their passion, even if they're in an advanced age, I would say. Is it okay to not have a passion?
Yeah, I think it's okay, but I think so much of gaining life experience and so much of living a really healthy life, being in a good state of well-being, leads you to inevitably discover things that you're passionate about. I see this all the time, especially back when I used to help with college guidance counseling. Lots of students changing their major, lots of students enrolling in tons of different classes, and then they would attend a class, just one of those classes, and if something didn't spark, if they didn't feel like they had found what their life was about, they would drop the class, change their major, and go on to something else. That to me is not really the goal. That to me usually signals that we have unhealthy understanding of passion and meaning and purpose. And let's say you get really excited about learning different languages. There are going to be hard parts of that. That doesn't mean languages aren't your thing. That just means, yeah, things in life can be hard. The person who sees that difficulty and still really wants to push through that difficulty, that's somebody that is experiencing passion. The person who goes into this and the second it gets hard feels like, oh, okay, so that's not what I'm passionate about and stops. That person is not seeing, I think, passion the right way and, is not going to find passion because everything is going to be hard at some point.
What about those people that instead of not having any kind of passion, they have multiple passions? Do you think that that is something positive for them, or is it something that will defocus them on having just one main passion?
Yeah, I think it's totally normal to have multiple passions. I'm really passionate about medicine. I'm really passionate about mental health. I'm really passionate about coding and programming and tons of things that I'm really passionate about, willing to sacrifice for. And then I have one that, to me is what fulfills the purpose side. And that's the mental health aspect. I think I could just as easily be content with focusing on medicine or focusing on coding. All of these things are things that I will find time to do, even if sometimes that means sacrificing free time.
There's some people that before in chat were asking me, I do have passions, but they're temporary. So they stay for 1 week. I'm so passionate about that. I start this hobby, and after 1 month, and they change to another thing that they think could be their passion. What does this say about us?
They might have this unhealthy understanding of passion. And so they think that because this feels hard or feels difficult or stressful, they should stop. That means it's not what they're passionate about. That kind of stuff we want to look out for. It's even when we're, say, playing games, there's a huge difference between somebody who plays Valorant and just has a fun time playing it versus somebody who plays professionally. Neither one of those people necessarily has to be passionate to do this. Somebody can totally play Valorant, be terrible at it, and still be passionate about it. And somebody can be a professional Valorant player and not at all be passionate about it. It is something that gets very, very complicated over time.
So then it's okay to have changing kind of passions through like long term, I'm saying. It's totally fine.
Yeah, that's totally normal. That's totally healthy. Even how I got into programming and coding, this was only the end of last year. I was really passionate about the nonprofit that I work at. I'm still really passionate about it. Part of that passion was wanting to have a better website and inevitably learning how to make one myself. In pursuit of that passion, during the course of that, developing another passion for coding and programming and really liking that experience. And it was a lot of sacrifice, lots of time, lots of energy, lots of frustration trying to learn things that were so obscure and new to me. But the passion pushes you through that. It doesn't matter that it's hard. It doesn't matter that it's complicated. It doesn't mean it's enjoyable, but we still want to keep going. That to me is where you find passion. So if you find yourself trying new things, all of the time, that's pretty good. But if you find yourself quitting things the second that they get complicated or get hard, it's probably time to reevaluate your understanding of passion or to, simply try working through that and seeing what comes from it.
What would you suggest to someone that feels like lost? Like they don't have a clear idea what is their passion. They don't understand, maybe because they've been changing so many times that they don't really understand. So is this a passion of mine or is it another interest that I'm having for a little bit? Should I found my entire career on this hobby or I'm gonna get tired of it? How do we understand what we like?
Well, see, I think there inherently lies the problem is we're looking for what we like and we're expecting to feel a certain way. This is something I see a lot in romantic relationships as well. We're expecting something to click. There should never be any kind of disagreement or argument. Otherwise, it's not a good relationship. It's work. Life includes work. We work hard to get the things that are valuable and meaningful. And when we don't have to work for those things, they have less meaning. Think about any kind of game. One of the things that is very unique in something like League of Legends is previously there were skins that you unlocked through achievement. So like challenger level skins. This was something that you could really be proud of, you could really show off, and you couldn't really artificially do that. It just you had it or you didn't. But as these different things become available to buy, people start selling stuff, or people are selling like the Challenger jackets and hoodies. Buying one of those hoodies doesn't really feel anywhere near as fulfilling. That's not the way. Path of Exile, Diablo, where you can just buy the items that you need to complete your build versus having found them yourself, is a very, very different feeling. And there's no strong sense of fulfillment. It's very fleeting. That is a challenge. Those are the things we don't want to get stuck in. We want to grind, we want to sacrifice, we want to give towards something and feel fulfilled in that. In today's world, in today's economy, that can be especially challenging, because we can sometimes realize what we're passionate about doesn't necessarily lead to anything financially. It doesn't necessarily fulfill that need, and it's a very real need. But what we can tell, at least from studying passion and studying people in their careers, people who say that they're passionate about their careers, is that people need autonomy. So they need to be able to make decisions. They need to be validated and praised for their work. So they need that feedback. They need to be told that, hey, this is meaningful, this is valuable. They need to have some level of compensation. Monetary and other forms of compensation are also valuable. And outside of that, not a whole lot. Some people find themselves working entirely to fuel a passion outside of work. Some people are working directly on what they're passionate about and being compensated for that. We've seen people find very unique ways to pay for their passion, whether they create content around simply being passionate about something and are compensated in that way. There's so many different approaches to that, but kind of back to the main point, there is not some feeling, I think, that comes from this that says, oh, okay, so this is what I'm passionate about. This is what my purpose is in life. There is a group of people who seemingly are living their passion, but they also have doubts about it. They also have questions about it. They likely have multiple passions. They just are still working through it. A lot of my day working towards things at RAD is hard, doesn't necessarily feel amazing constantly, but I still kind of go through that. At the end of the day, love it. I think that's what real passion can feel like.
That is beautiful. We had a question. How do people with depression find their passion? Since they lose an interest in their hobbies, and by definition, it's hard for someone who constantly gives up on their interest.
So depression, one of the main symptoms that we look at in this regard is what's called anhedonia. And this is the inability to feel joy. When anhedonia sets in, life is gray. We imagine depression as extremely sad, down. It's not necessarily like that. Depression oftentimes feels flat, empty, hollow. Sometimes going through depression, even hoping to cry feels something, that is a goal, that is an aspiration, versus I haven't cried in forever because I can't even get myself to feel enough to cry. That can be very painful. Working out of depression, it becomes the main priority. Finding passion, that's going to be really hard when you're depressed. Maybe there's these fascinating stories of somebody finding passion despite depression. Few people do. Depression is so interesting in the sense that once the depression is overcome, life looks entirely different. And suddenly so much of what was lost or felt hard to achieve all becomes so much more clear. I see this a lot with entrepreneurs too, where they're trying to work through the depression by just reorganizing, reshuffling, trying to figure out a new venture, starting a new startup, thinking that somehow they'll find something that clicks and then they're no longer depressed or burnt out. And that doesn't work that way. Sometimes coincidentally, depression can fade. We connect that to something else, but that's not what you want to count on. Once you have greater clarity outside of the depression, it becomes a lot easier to find the things that you're passionate about, things that you're excited about, things that you're most importantly willing to sacrifice for.
More on a practical side, if we're looking into trying to find something that we could be passionate about, Do you have any suggestions on like things to reflect on, tasks to do, or something very practical in order to understand what could be our passion? I'm thinking mostly from a point of view of someone that is finishing high school and they have to get to university. They're not clear what do they like to do, what do they not like to do, and they're doing like a decision that will change their life because they're going through a path that will shape their future. What would you suggest to someone that has to go through something like that?
Just keep doing. Something that I struggled with right out of high school and going into college was what exactly I wanted to do. And at the time, it felt really, really overwhelming. It even felt like it stopped me in my tracks. Did I want to be a medical doctor? Did I want to be a nurse? A lot of the doctors I talked to mentioned that it was filled with paperwork and filled with difficulties that, especially in the US, the medical system was terrible, and it wasn't fun to be a doctor anymore, be a nurse. There's much more autonomy. Nurses seem to be a lot happier. The pay is fair. So I was really excited about that. And initially that's what I was going to school for, until I met a professor who told me that, hey, you are too smart to be a nurse. You should become a doctor. And that really confused me because it was both an insult to nurses, but also came at a time where I was really vulnerable to what I wanted to do. Then I was like, oh, well, now I guess I have to become a doctor, right? Because I can't waste that potential. That was something that really mixed me up. I got stuck for a while. Well, I ended up going to the military to some degree instead, feeling lost, feeling conflicted, but also not really knowing what I wanted to do. I just went in a different route instead that ultimately meant I didn't have to make a decision yet. It didn't matter which path that I chose. If I had gone the route of becoming a nurse and ultimately still felt like I needed to be a doctor, I could just become a doctor. At least now I know I didn't want to be a nurse. By choosing neither, I have no answer. I have no feedback. I don't know what I want to do, and I remain stuck. We assume that we're going to waste time. We assume if we pick the wrong thing, there's no way back to the right thing. It just doesn't work that way. It is so much better to do the wrong thing and learn that that's not what you want to do than it is to just make the right choice the first time. Few people do that. Lots of the people that seem to be most happy, most successful, they're looking at having chosen something much later on in life, having pivoted in some direction based off of doing something else first and then finding that.
I love how you answered to this question. I have another question from chat. How much did pandemic affect our passion searching path?
I think for some people, it was the best reason to delay and not make a decision on some things. And for others, it was one of the best catalysts for making those decisions, not having a choice, having more time even to explore. Now that we're stuck at home, now that we're not spending hours in traffic, now that we have a bit more free time, what do we actually enjoy? So I think this whole pandemic has been a unique time to reflect on simply being human, what we enjoy, what we don't enjoy, what we can tolerate, how resilient we can be, and what we can do when left to our own resources. We don't have as much external pressure on us to do something in particular. It's been a very curious time.
If I don't have a specific passion, what am I missing out on?
That's tough to say. I think when you have something that you actively sacrifice for to work on, it feels really different. It feels very fulfilling. It feels very satisfying.
I would like to ask you just one final thing. If you can say something to whoever is out there listening that is trying to find their passion, something encouraging.
If you're out there trying to find your passion, what I would recommend is to just try everything. Just go through, learn stuff, try and have fun doing that. And when it gets hard, when it gets challenging, push through that initial barrier.
Thank you so much again, Jason. I really appreciate you. I'll see you next week.
All right, take care.
Bye. Hello! Hello! Did you like it? I should have done this way before.